Joe, firstly, thank you very much for joining me on this episode.
It's a pleasure to be on one of the best podcasts in the UK.
Oh, you are clearly my favourite. I love it. No, seriously, this is very cool because I guess we've known each other for almost a year now, going back to PTYA Cohort 1 Accountability Buddies, but also because not only are you a wonderful human being, but you also know a crap load about what we're going to talk about today, which is repurposing and content creation and all that sort of stuff. So not only is it fun for me to just hang out and talk to you, but it's very cool to get you on and talk about your journey and what you've learned in your time, I guess, content creating and also working for Ali, and kind of help share all your wisdom and while I try and steal all your secrets, basically. So, yeah, awesome. Okay, so I kind of want to start almost like way back when, because you produce content for Ali, like repurposing content, and you will be able to give a much better explanation than I can. But how did that all come about? Like, how did you end up working for or with Ali in the first place?
Yeah, so Ali Abdaal is by far probably the most known client that I do work with, and it's an absolute pleasure. It doesn't feel like work by any stretch. So yeah, started working with Ali probably about, COVID's completely blurred all shapes.
Tell me about it.
Understanding of time. But started working for Ali. So my first kind of social media job. So yeah, my background social media strategy. Worked at Cambridge University as their social media assistant, like the first member of their team. And there was just whispers in the office constantly about this student in Cambridge who had not only a business, but he had an amazing YouTube channel. And myself and a colleague, we both had a bond. We both liked podcasts. And he said, "Oh, he's got a podcast. This guy's got a podcast. This guy's got a podcast." And I was like, who has this podcast? And basically it was Ali. He was on the radar of Cambridge University because the social media team needed to know who was building an audience. Obviously he was a rocket ship then, but obviously now today he's got 2 million YouTube subscribers. He has created an incredible course, which is how we met Bav. And yeah, like basically reached out to him. My kind of career progression, whether it's like traditional or untraditional, has been just kind of sliding into people's DMs and reaching out to them. And that's what I did with Ali. He had a standing offer on his website, meet up for a coffee if you're in Cambridge, it's on me sort of thing. So yeah, I just basically heard that he was doing good things, thought to reach out to him, don't really know why. Next day we're having a cheeky Nando's, as he would say. And I just managed to find a way to provide value to him, which at that time was kind of just swapping my time, really. I had all the time in the world. I had a full-time job, was looking for side hustles, and I started to manage his LinkedIn profile to try and help him to appeal to more students in a younger demographic. And it stemmed from there. The great thing about working with creators is that the work's fun, and if they are taking off and doing incredible things, then you can be a part of that. So my work with him has just expanded, which has been really cool. And then obviously get to meet great people like yourself. And then the opportunities from someone like him, well, him in particular is just an incredible person. He's so selfless. He's opened up so many opportunities. So yeah, I guess I didn't think it would lead to sort of repurposing and kind of being his social media manager, basically. So whilst he's a client, we have this really good relationship where I'm kind of his outsourced social media manager. I work very closely with his team. And the brief has kind of been, if you can keep up, then that will continue. So I'm building a content marketing agency on my side, doing more than just LinkedIn. Now it's kind of scoped to repurposing and to try and help creators. So yeah, started with randomly emailing him, meeting up because that's what he's like as a person. So yeah, it's all felt quite lucky, to be honest, but just trying to make the most of it.
Yeah, I love that story. And I know you say luck at the end, and yes, obviously there is an element of luck, but what I love most about that story is actually that you've put yourself out there and you have made it happen. Yes, okay, there is an element of luck involved. He had a standing offer for coffee or whatever, and he was, receptive to whatever you were saying. But at the end of the day, you made the first move. You kind of made that connection in the first place. And it kind of goes to show that if you do put yourself out there, and it's not going to happen in every situation, obviously, and that's where the luck plays a part. But if you put yourself out there enough, then things are going to happen and things are going to go your way. So that's definitely something I really love about that kind of story. Going back to, I guess, you building this agency, how did you starting to work with Ali kind of lead on to you building this agency? Because like you said, you already had a full-time job. Yes, you were looking for a side hustle, but how does one lead to you now running your own social media kind of agency?
Yeah, it's been a journey. I've got the bags under my eyes. Just last night I was working till literally 2:30 a.m. So yeah, burnt out about 4 or 5 times over lockdown. I've put on extra weight. I've got a bad back, so I've got all of the scars of trying to build a business.
Oh no!
My own YouTube channel. On my channel, there's a video talking about I'm going to document the highs and lows of building a business. And I look at that guy now, and I thought the reason why people don't document is because you do not have the freaking headspace, and you cannot do it. And you'd usually just be sitting down to record the many problems you've had to solve and how you've had to reinvent yourself basically every day. So yeah, 18 months ago, start of lockdown, was in a full-time marketing role. As I said, I was able to kind of just, I was always reaching out to people for kind of, just, hey, I have the time. I think if you do want something, so I was always interested in learning, I was interested in content creation, I was just wanting to be around interesting people at the start of my career, so I was always just putting speculative messages out to people like, hey, like, I don't know what I could help you with, but I could probably help you with something, even if it's not a skill, I have time. So someone like Ali, like, he didn't have the time. So for anyone, like, reach out to people. What are you listening to on the evenings and weekends? Like, who inspires you? What authors are you reading? People like Ali, like, as I started to get into his content, I was like, oh my God, like, it became from me listening to his content and just literally enjoying it to being paid to listen to his content because it was like video editing. So yeah, it's a bit of a pinch me moment, but if you're happy to trade your time, you can get into some incredible sort of situations for yourself you wouldn't be able to get into if you just kind of took the front door of everything. And that's kind of been my approach to my career. So had a full-time marketing job, always looking for side hustles, had 2 clients, had Ali and somebody else doing LinkedIn profile management, basically create my own content at that point. And then that was a walking case study for people like, hey, this guy's built an audience from just putting yourself out there and putting yourself out there, no immediate return. And then it starts to turn when people say, hey, so you've built this audience, can you do it for me? I don't have the time. Not even if you're the best at it, if you've just, it's a skill, like you don't have the time to do it, but they see the value. So yeah, just started doing like that. And then I just addressed, well, what other creators like Ali do I really love? Who do I want to be around? And as it all stems on the content creation, well, this job description would literally be either reading articles which inspire me, listening or to podcasts or watching videos that inspire me, and be paid to kind of take that information and repurpose it into social media content, which was my full-time job at the time. So yeah, I just kind of thought, why not reach out to people whose content I genuinely enjoy? Because if you genuinely enjoy it, it's not a cold DM, it's not an outreach message. You literally would be like, hey, loved episode Y about X with guest. You can quote things because it actually meant something to you, and that just cuts above the noise when creators like Ali gets literally probably 200 DMs a day of the, hey, say hi to me, or hey, how are you, or hey, great vid. You know, if you're literally pouring your heart out to someone because you love their content, you'll be noticed. And then at the very least, you can just swap your time to try and be around them. And then the wins, like the win with that is that the exposure they have to other people. And then in content creation, again, probably a bit lucky, is with Ali now, I'm posting across all of his socials and managing all of that content. People are seeing that content. Oh, who's done your content? And then it's just literally the business has stemmed from word of mouth, really. And then I guess I've kind of tried to expand out from just LinkedIn and trying to, where are the opportunities on social? Where are the growth opportunities? Which again, someone like Ali does not have the time for. He doesn't care about. He just wants to see his content being out there and getting results. And that's how I'm stemming out and like zooming out to be more of a content marketing agency for creators. With the view of then treating myself as a client. I've got this really efficient system, and then I can finally be more consistent with my content, and then I can treat myself as a client, repurpose all of my content, and then build my own personal brand. That's the kind of steps that I see ahead. And yeah, I tweeted those steps about 12 months ago because I'd love to in three years' time to retweet that tweet and be like, oh, he had it all planned. But no, I think if you prove yourself in any capacity for one person, that's your case study. And then if that person has an audience, you just leverage that audience, you know, not in an evil way, like in a way that you're doing great stuff and they have built up this amazing audience. You just get amplified with your message.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense. And we will get your YouTube channel back up and running for sure. And we will have that tweet go
I was
up.
the worst accountability buddy. I was the worst accountability buddy ever. I don't know how you even call me that title.
You can have that title for life. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You have nothing to apologise for. It was all good. And look, we're here today, aren't we? You're doing amazing things, Joe. Again, and I think actually this is another point is, like, you don't, obviously we want you to get your channel back up and running, but it's not like YouTube is the be all and end all. Look at all the things you've achieved in the last year, right? And yes, okay, you weren't doing YouTube content week in, week out, but you were doing content week in, week out, and you were building and growing your own brand and your own business. And at the end of the day, that's all YouTube is. So whether it's YouTube or your content creation agency, like, does it matter? Like, probably not. Like, I think you're still doing very cool stuff.
Yeah, it comes down to what you're doing it for. So for me, I saw, just as you have, like with your podcast, like even if you're doing a podcast at the start, your first 2 episodes, you're getting it off the ground, but it's an opportunity. It's like a vehicle to meet new people and to meet like-minded people. And I see it for yourself, the guests that you've had on. I can see that those be very fulfilling conversations regardless of the view count, and that's why you're showing up consistently. And that was me. So my initial vehicle for content creation was LinkedIn. So I was, from my background in social media, seeing people with YouTube channels about Instagram, like how to grow your Instagram profile, how to optimize your Instagram profile, the Instagram algorithm in 2021. And at the time, I was at the start of my marketing career, looking to get a role in social media marketing, thinking I can literally DM anyone on LinkedIn. I can go to Gymshark, which is what I did, find the head of social media, a guy called Alfred, and DM him about an internship, about mentorship. And that's what I did. And if COVID hadn't happened, I actually had secured that. So I realized I'm a DM away. So when people were like 18, 19, like spending time on Tinder and like swiping and optimizing their first message to dates, I was literally on LinkedIn and direct messages, optimizing my messages to directors and CEOs, as sad as that sounds, but getting a lot of benefits from it. And then LinkedIn became my vehicle on social media. Like, how can I be, not trying to be the LinkedIn guy, because I thought, let's not look too short term, but I was spending endless time sending all these DMs, all these messages to people, and yeah, a couple of them come off if you do enough reps. So yeah, and then my channel has, yeah, as you say, my content's paused.
Mine too, Joe. Don't worry.
I would take the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's all good. Yeah. So actually, going back to DMs, and like, you obviously put so much work and effort into that, and like you said, it has clearly paid off. Like, give me a ballpark, if you can, like, number of people that you were DMing, just to kind of put into perspective, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, you know, I've DM'd 10 people and no one's got back to me, and you know, that's there's no point. But like you've said, you need to put in the reps. So kind of to put into perspective how many DMs you potentially have to send, and how many rejections or no replies you potentially get, and how you kind of deal with that.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely is reps, like, but of course, quality. If you put the time into something, you are going to get the most benefit. So I've spent half a day sending an email to someone, and it worked. I crafted the perfect email, and I will say who it was. So the founder of Gumroad, Sahil, who posts incredible content on Twitter. I spent half a day crafting an email to send to him, which was, at the time, I lost my job because of COVID. I had these 2 clients. I was trying to build LinkedIn management as a side hustle. Realized he had all this content. He literally is only on Twitter. Thought, okay, this is the perfect guy to try and contact. Spent half a day, and the reason I spent half a day was because I consumed literally like his previous week of content. Found that he had a Medium article where he'd actually created a story, and he had a character, and it turns out he really enjoys writing novels and personal stories, and it was this sort of like fantasy story with this lead character. And my email, basically the first line was mentioning the character, and describing the story about how the character like goes through these struggles and then ends up getting what he wanted. And I kind of took that approach to, I think I can help you and promote what you're doing onto a social, and related myself to what I was doing to this character, which is crazy. And then I crafted the email in a way that all he had to do was say yes or no. So my last line was not just like some paragraph talking about myself, because what mostly happens with DMs, with anyone, if you think about your own behavior, you're usually reaching out to someone because you want something. Hey, give me attention. Hey, I want to know you. Hey, give me a job. So we all get that, and it's just so off-putting. If you open up any of your messages, it's somebody wanting your attention and wanting something from you. So taking that and flipping it, you have to put it all in their perspective. And then again, like I said, for this guy, incredibly time-strapped, make it a yes or no decision. And with him, I just got an email back saying yes, because the question was basically, I'll turn like literally a month of your tweets and content into LinkedIn content. How does this sound? I'll literally track all of the engagement. I'll give you a report at the end of the month of how everything's performing. I'll do all of this for free. And if you see any value in it, then I'd just love to continue. And I just got a reply, yes. My next reply was like, password, ? And then I got login details. And then it happened for about a month. And then him in particular, he went and launched a fund, and he's just grown Gumroad miles and miles and miles ahead. Yeah, so it didn't continue is the sad thing. However, he was someone who's known to be impossibly hard to reach, And I wanted to work for him because I listened to a podcast and it blew my mind. Like, I was literally saving so many notes of what he was saying. So I was so excited. So I took the excitement, bottled it up. How can I then put myself in his shoes? How can I craft the perfect DM? But going back to volume, like, as I said, even that one sounds like a success, but it didn't actually end up working. So taking it more local, if you're looking for a job, you're looking for a marketing job, go onto Google Maps, type in your location, open up LinkedIn, type in all of the company's marketing agencies, type in CEO next to their name, and then you can just send a DM. I think it comes down to quality. If you take more time, you're going to have a better outcome. And just think outside the box. People forget that directors of companies are people. One thing I like to think of, like, if you imagine a CEO, let's say a female CEO of a huge marketing agency, who's that person on the weekend? Like, you probably see her in Tesco. But whereas Monday to Friday, you put these people on pedestals. Yeah, if she's probably with her child or her son at a football game on a Saturday. And if you were next to them, they'd talk to you. So you need to kind of just take these people off these pedestals, meet them where they're at, and then put messages in a way that provides value to them. And as going back to what I said initially, like, we all have time. So why don't you go and prove to them that you can do something? So if it's podcast, if I'm like, hey, Bav, I want to get your attention, I want to repurpose your podcast. Instead of me sending you a message asking for permission, why don't I go and chop up your last 2 episodes into social media content, send it to you with a Google Drive or retransfer link? That will get more attention. People just a bit scared to do the upfront work.
Joe, can I just butt in and tell you that you are more than welcome to do that if you want to? I give you full permission to go ahead and repurpose the content.
I would have, trust me. Me 3 years ago, I'd be all over that. But this is the thing, like, it does take upfront time. People are so reluctant to do anything which doesn't have an immediate ROI. But as I'm sure you've done with, your first podcast episode, there's no immediate ROI in whatever shape or form, right? We've both done Ali's part-time YouTube academy, probably about $2,000 in debt at that point. Got the lights, got the camera.
Oh, don't remind me.
And then you go, and then you post it and you refresh the page, you've got 1 view. At that point, there's no immediate ROI, but you knew your vision, you knew what you're trying to achieve, and ultimately you enjoyed it. Going back to putting time into DMs, time into opportunities, you just got to take the immediate ROI hits of, try it. It's a long-term game. And then what is good, I think I don't have any skills. I generally don't think I've got any skills, but I have enthusiasm and I won't stop. So if I enjoy someone's content, if I want to be around someone, I will just try and be valuable to that person. I'd be very irritating, just like, hey, can I help you here? Can I help you here? Can I help you here? I think my success is at like 18, I got an internship from that way. It became a positive loop of I tried, put myself out there, and it was like a one-on-one relationship. I tried something, it worked. Okay, cool. And then I did it again and it worked. I did it again and it worked. So now I just try and do everything in like untraditional ways.
I just want to say, you absolutely have skills, Joe. Let's not be crazy here. Yes, you have a passion.
I said that
yeah. I'll have a check later. No, but you absolutely do. And I think that's something that we all do. Maybe it's a British thing well, more of a British thing of, putting yourself down, but like you absolutely do. But I understand the point that everyone can do it, but let's not underestimate like what you have achieved and what you can do by any means at all. But I want to go back to the kind of you consuming content, because obviously it's very clear that you love consuming this type of content and just content in general. Yeah. Like, what's that process for you? And kind of, has it always been there? Did you get into it at some point? Was there a trigger? And how much content do you actually consume?
Yeah, great question. I think the majority of my content is podcasts, which is a very popular thing to say because I'm on a podcast, but 2xing things, I'm not going to be, I 4x stuff. I don't. But sort of listening to things faster. When I was in full-time work, I'd always be driving into work. So I used to drive into Cambridge for an hour. So just a very clear, download something, listen to it for an hour on the way to work, and then listen to it on the way back. So I definitely switched music to podcasts for a very long time. And then just found like the information we have access to, especially with podcasts, like if you're into business and personal development, oh my god, it's like being on the fly on the wall of like the greatest conversations. So if there's a great like Naval quote, like if you don't love reading, like basically like there's a Naval quote about it's basically, I'm going to mash it up, but find a book that you enjoy reading, and then after a point you're then going to start enjoy the act of reading. So like if it's podcasts, find whatever it is in learning, find your way that you just enjoy learning. It could be YouTube videos, it could be podcasts, it could be books, because you unwind before bed. Whatever it is, just find your way that you like to learn, and then over time, I'm going to start like enjoying learning in itself. And then for probably since I've been like 16, 17, I've just almost every evening and weekend just had something on in the background, or going for walks. It was just a very, don't I quote, like just say like a productive thing, because you need downtime sometimes, but for a very long time without meaning to, I'd go for a walk and just listen to something. So I mainly consume podcasts, I would say, and then just like anyone really, just think to capture it down, and that can be as simple as just putting stuff in the notes of your phone, and that's how it started for me. So with LinkedIn content, it was listen to a podcast. It would just spark like all of these different ideas, jot them down, capture them down, and then when you're at your laptop or whatever, just type up those notes, or just start to pad out content. To the point, I think in general, content creation, as you said, you just want it to be, you want that capture habit. It's like the most important thing, I think, as a content creator, is to develop a capture habit, because then all you have to do is just expose yourself to interesting things and interesting people. And by autopilot, like whatever tools you're using, you're just putting it to the start of your like content creation, like ecosystem. And it just comes to the point where you sit down and just go, oh, that's an interesting idea, I'm going to pad that out today. And then you start to make content from it. I think if you're not capturing things down, then you just listen to all this information and not really doing anything with it. It becomes, I don't say the word addictive, but it's very enjoyable. And now I haven't posted content for about 2 months, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite. And now I'm out of the loop. It doesn't feel like a natural habit. I don't go for a walk and listen to podcasts. So I think you do it, you get momentum, you get so many benefits from it, and then it becomes this like really sticky habit. I'd say that. But content creation, I think, stems from content like capturing and curation of just listening to interesting things. I think it's quite hard to not be inspired.
Yes.
Even if it depends what your interests are. It's hard to not be inspired by things.
Yeah, I'm definitely the type of person that will consume an insane amount of content but not take notes, because I haven't quite nailed that process. But now that you've had like however many years experience of picking out the so-called fire moments or capturing the right parts of different things, and actually just capturing relevant bits of a podcast or a YouTube video, or turning things into tweet threads, what's your current kind of process of taking notes and then kind of finding out like the best bits now?
Yeah, for sure. If it's my own content, then I will. So if I'm trying to create content for myself, I'd just be listening to things and just try and get all this exposure. If it's reading a book on Kindle, just highlighting things, cool, send it to your email or like whatever, get it into your Notion content calendar, get it into this one place. If you're making notes for podcasts you're just listening to, save it into your notes on your phone and then just email that to yourself. However you do it, just get it to this like one central hub, like whether it's Notion and all these different tools. With clients, so for example, the clients I work with is like YouTubers or podcast hosts or creators, and still some business owners and CEOs and things like that. In general, the workflow of clients is very much that if you are a director of a company, you're a business owner, you're a CEO, if you're a YouTuber, a creator, these people just don't have time. So I had to build this really efficient system for creating content, because back in the day when it was just LinkedIn, I might have 1 hour of input from this business owner who sees the value in putting himself out there and his thought leadership being displayed in his expertise, but he's only got 1 hour. So the way I would work with those sorts of people is to model somebody like posting a YouTube video once per week or a podcast. So it'd literally just be a Zoom call, come prepared with all my questions and topics, and I just ask them all of these questions in all these different ways. Obviously just like record the call, capture the audio, and then just use any transcription tool under the sun. So you've got tools like Subly, which you can transcript with, rev.com, Descript, anything, just capture the audio, and then you can get basically 1 hour of what that person said as text. And then that, like, how many questions to you and to the audience, how many posts or ideas or topics do you think you can get from 1 hour of somebody talking? And that's like my whole business model. There you go. Whoever wants to take my work, go. Capture down, distill, capture it. There's benefits of Zoom. If you're going to just do no visuals, then you allow yourself to then you can transcribe stuff. But if you record stuff on a camera, even a webcam, you allow video clips, audiograms. Cool. Now let's take our video clip, which is 2 minutes, and let's make a Twitter thread. How many single tweets are in that 2-minute video clip? Okay, cool. They listed their 3 best time hacks, their best 3 productivity tips. Let's make a carousel deck, which we swipe through of those 3 tips for more visual platforms like Instagram. They said something quite provocative about a controversial topic. Maybe we get a poll and we put that to their audience to get engagement. And it's just like how many different ways can you take what they've said? and repurpose that out and just expand it out. And in terms of tools, it can be as simple as, I think the only tool anyone really needs is maybe some sort of way to just capture what's being said. However, you can do that for free. I mean, you can listen to the audio back and type up whatever you find interesting, whatever just like pricks your ears up a little bit. You could upload stuff to YouTube as an unlisted video, and then YouTube will, so Google obviously own YouTube, they will accurately transcribe whatever you've uploaded to YouTube. It's like 80% accurate. You can just rip that off YouTube. Just press a button called toggle, which is like view transcript. So it doesn't even need to cost anything. And this is just to save you time. You can do it by just listening. And yeah, it's just a skill. It's just you get a trained ear of what is content and what could be content. And then at a base level, I think anyone can do that. If you go deeper, you want to understand what the person's trying to achieve and who are their audience and what is content to them and how do they like to enjoy content and where are the opportunities on social. Like obviously right now, TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts, portrait content is a huge area of growth, which is very efficient to triple down on. So in terms of the skills, in terms of the tools, I think they're easily accessible for everyone. In terms of the skill, I think it's just you get a learned ear for what could be content, and then it's just reps. It's just trying it, and it's usually a eureka moment. So now I'm building a team, and it's really nice because someone will take a blog, and then they go, like I've made one LinkedIn post out this blog. I'm like, cool, go back. Go back. There's like 2 to 3 LinkedIn posts, and then what could they be? They could be Twitter threads. And they quoted somebody. Okay, let's grab that quote and put it into image graphic. And then suddenly, like, wow, we've just literally made 20 pieces of content from this one long form. And the benefits, if you work with creators or podcast hosts, they should just focus on their podcast. Like you, Bav, when you expand, this becomes the biggest podcast in the UK.
Like you're thinking.
No doubts. You just walk on, you record, and then your team just take those files, you drop them into Drive or Dropbox, they grab it, and they just have the system where you get this output of all this content across your socials. Because you being the podcast host, that's your area of expertise. If you focused on that, you're going to become better and better and better each rep. Ideal world is you focus on that. You walk out, that's your expertise, your area of genius, as people say, and then everything else gets sorted for you. A business owner should just be leading their business. And then their marketing can be done with like 1 hour of input from them every month. And this is how it all stemmed with Ali. He was literally just like, I trust you, I trust your strategy, just, tweak it. I trust everything you're doing. He says to his team, I want to sit down and just record a video. To the point where a script is given to him, cameras are set up, lights are done. His thing is he's the teacher, so what he does incredibly well. As long as he focuses on that, he'll be far better placed in the future. So I don't even know what your question was, but yeah.
That's fine. Whatever you answered was way better than I think what I even asked. But you did kind of answer the question that I should have asked. So thank you. Yeah, a couple of points that I guess I want to draw out from there, but I will go. Which way should I go first? I'll come back to Ali in a second, actually. So I guess before we lead on to that, we've mentioned repurposing, we've mentioned content creation, and we've mentioned like social media management. Could you just maybe talk around those things and what they are and why are they important and why are we having this conversation around them? Because like it is something that creators should be thinking of.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the repurposing is just, you're doing something for one purpose and then you're actually taking that and you're just producing it in all these different ways and you're just reusing it. So any creator, whether your area of genius is writing, then maybe you should just focus on your newsletter, writing that once per week, or focusing on the newsletter as that long form piece or your blog. If you want to be a podcast host, then that's your podcast. If it's your YouTube channel, it's your YouTube. Now you're doing something clever, which most podcast hosts do nowadays, is that you may as well put that video on a YouTube channel as well and enable all this other content. Like your setup right now is amazing. You enable video clips and all this other content because you put the visuals as well. So many podcasts nowadays are a byproduct of actually a YouTube channel. So even though someone's trying to grow like a YouTube channel, some people go, we're going to think about the audio in the background because that can also be a podcast. And it's just like as efficient as possible. You're thinking about the big domino, which is an amazing article on a blog called Rad Reads, which is just what can you focus on primarily is like your long form piece, your big domino, which just leads to all of these things coming downstream. So for you, recording your podcast with the visuals, you get a YouTube channel, you got YouTube videos, you get your podcast episodes, and then you enable all these different types of content underneath, which even if you don't have the time to do it now because you're a solopreneur, you're a single creator, these are assets, you've thought about that. So in the future, 6 months time, you have all of these assets which can be made for you to promote your episodes. So it's like the big domino, like a more day-to-day example. like whenever I go to, I haven't been to the gym in like 3 months, so my membership is just becoming very costly at this point.
Oh, no.
But you know, I could wake up and try to go to the gym. I could wake up and I could try to stretch. I could wake up and I could try to eat healthy. For me, I know myself, if I go to the gym, usually after going to the gym, if it was a waste to eat unhealthy, so I'll probably eat healthy. So instead of trying to think about eating healthy and going to the gym, if I go to the gym, I actually end up eating healthier that day. So I don't even need to think about the other stuff, the other benefits of going to the gym. If I go there, these other things happen. So if you focus on long form content and you have the back of your mind post-production and repurposing, focus on this thing and all of this stuff can just happen underneath. And that's available for any creator. You just need to go, hey, like what sort of social media platforms have the most opportunity? And that just leads to what content you make and where you triple down on. And then if you are in a privileged position where you can delegate or outsource, and obviously you can create stuff in all these different ways. What's amazing usually is within any line of field of work, if you just focus on what you're good at for a long enough period of time, you can probably monetize it in some sort of way, and then repurposing can be something which a team can do for you. But obviously, like sometimes it's good to do it yourself at the start because you can get a feel for how to do it and give someone this manual of like, here's how I've repurposed my content myself. Can you just replicate the same thing? And then, yeah, even the thought is then taken out of it.
I love your your analogy, but the Rad Reads kind of domino like effect. You've told me that before somewhere, and I think that's just such a great thing because you're right. Once you have this like Kickstarter. So for me, it's getting up on time. If I get up on time, I know I'm going to have a decent day 9 times out of 10. If I get up late, then I've kind of screwed myself over. So firstly, I think that's a great kind of point. Secondly, on the repurposing of like, so focusing on like your kind of speciality. So like you said, in my case, it'd be the podcast, and I could either go, okay, well, I have to get the podcast, I have to get the YouTube channel, I need to create clips, I need to create social, I need to create a blog, and all of a sudden it becomes incredibly overwhelming. But again, I'm still pretty darn new at this in the grand scheme of things, and therefore, yeah, okay, if I just keep putting out content for another 6 months, a year, then that content is still sitting there, ready for when the time is right. It's not like I have to kick this off and have everything nailed right from the get-go of, you know, if I have to repurpose, I need to do it now and I need to be on every platform. That's kind of not necessarily a thing. And obviously people like Ali have a team around him that can do that. But even he wasn't doing that way back when. And that's kind of where you came in. So, I think that's a really good point of just create the assets, get started, build your expertise in an area, and the rest will come kind of in time. It's very cool.
Yeah, there's so many socials. Like Ali is an example. You probably won't mind me saying this. For loads of established creators, like Instagram usually comes as a byproduct of like, I've been subscribed for this person for, you know, say you have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. People then care about your Instagram. They then want behind the scenes. They want to see your stories. They just like enjoy you so much. They want to see what you're doing every day. So for so many creators at the start, it's like, because Instagram for most of us, like our daily driver, like the app we just scroll like by default. But for most of us, it's still actually our family and friends in that audience, and maybe some people who are supporting us just above. But I think it's just a timeline of some platforms you focus on in different periods of time. So I'm mainly talking before Reels, because Instagram now is an opportunity for any creator because Reels has just completely changed the game. Before that, like 6 months ago, Instagram, what I'd probably suggest to anyone is just a platform you deal with a bit later, because if you've built one audience, you've become known for things, people just come looking for you there. So typically you don't need to be everywhere at the start, and that's where the sort of 80-20 comes in of like, what could I create? How could I create clips or assets from my podcast, my YouTube? Or how can I write content from my blog, which I can kind of like cast the net as wide as possible with the least amount of effort. You've made a square video clip of your podcast episodes. You've done square deliberately because that can go on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram if it's under 60 seconds. So you might go, okay, to avoid the headache of IGTV, I'm only going to create clips which are under 60 seconds, therefore I cover Instagram too. And you just make those decisions to just make it as easy as possible. Nowadays, like as of time of recording, Instagram has had this huge breath of life because of Reels, and people are literally getting 10,000 followers in a week because they're latching on to trending sounds. And this is where like the repurposing, the work that I do is not just repurposing. I don't just see myself and the team I'm building as editors. We do content strategy, we do content writing, we make all the assets as well. We can do everything, and then we see like where are the opportunities. So right now, to give like a behind the scenes, so with Ali stuff, we repurpose all the content that he does, his YouTube videos. We make video clips from the content that he records. If he's a guest on a podcast, we make video clips. We turn them into Twitter threads, turn them into single tweets. We're going to start doing carousels. Someone in his team today was talking about making carousels, which is amazing. However, we realized, and this is where content, like monitoring how things are performing, matters as well. We realized that just dropping repurposed content from a YouTube channel to like an Instagram reel just doesn't look right. People are using those platforms in different ways. Like, it has to be purposely built. So what we now do with clients, which anyone can do again, you have your repurposing, and then you have like your, what I call them now at the moment, portrait filming sessions over here, which then is back to the work I used to do on LinkedIn. So myself and Ali and other clients that I work with, we go on a Zoom call. They just set up their camera, and anyone can do this with a friend. Set up your camera, so you're good. You're making your content to the camera. Put it in portrait, or record at landscape, but allow yourself some headroom so it could crop to portrait. And then I did it for a client recently, in literally 2 hours, we went through like 40 questions. I had a Google Doc of just questions and topics about their expertise, and like a hook in brackets of what the hook could be. And then you could do it yourself, as I say. So you look at Google Doc to the screen, read a question or read a topic, answer it to camera, and you can make portrait content, which is about 30 seconds long, even less sometimes, and cover TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and then Instagram Reels. Because repurposed content can like fulfill most of the stuff, but there's so much opportunity over here for portrait content, which needs to be engineered slightly, needs to be more native to the platform. You've recorded it deliberately for that purpose. And most recently, that's what we've been doing for clients and getting great results, because we're focusing on where the opportunity is, and that's what everyone should be doing. So yeah, repurposing it, like, it can cover you to an extent, and then the next level after that is like making bespoke content, like directly for where you think there's opportunity.
Yeah, that's great, actually. And I like the way you've kind of gone, there's like almost levels. So when you're starting out, like me, it's just a case of, hey, just get the long form content out, and then you can kind of look to the next level. And the next level might be picking one platform to repurpose on, and then kind of build that. And then when you've got that nailed, and that process and that system nailed, then you can start moving on to other platforms that isn't necessarily repurposing, but it's still your content. You're just saying it in a different way, relevant to that platform, right? So TikTok or Instagram Reels or something, it's the same stuff, but you're saying it in a way that works for that platform, and that's kind of your like gold standard, so to speak, to kind of finish the circle. That's very cool.
Yeah, you're doing stuff like, you make bespoke content because you know there's like components that are working and there's leverage. And right now the opportunity is that you could spend an extra hour per week filming just portrait content. But it's not one for one. It's not just for Reels. It could also be Shorts. It could also be TikTok. And the difference is just how you edit it in the app. Yeah. So for a lot of people, it's just, that's definitely worth 1 hour, because that then ticks the box of like three areas of growth. So yeah, certainly that's like gold standard. But again, available to anyone. Like, you can do that. Yeah.
All right. Here's. I'm going to throw in a selfish question here. Say we finished recording this episode, Joe, and there is, this 1 hour of audio visual content. If you were planning my content strategy, that was poorly worded. Yeah, if you're planning my content for the next week, gold standard wise, what would kind of be the way you would approach it, the things you would do, or kind of how you would map it?
Great question, Bab. Great question. Get your pen and paper.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Okay. Are you editing it? We're going for level 1, right? So we're just going to try and cast the net out as probably, let's go for our like most efficient plan of this content. All right. First thing I would probably do, listen to it.
That one I do.
Listen through.
Yeah.
Listen through. Honestly, it is a skill. I mean, at the start, listen to it at normal pace. Over time, you can like 2x things and listen through, and you just naturally pause things. Oh, that was interesting. What I would do is, firstly, in any editing software, wherever this video file is, drop it into editing software. It could be iMovie, like it could be DaVinci. Let's start with like free tools. Don't worry about Final Cut, Premiere. If you have that stuff, great. Due to the nature of this podcast, if your nature of your podcast was that you want to be on camera because you're asking the question, you get the answer, then I would just literally blitz through the podcast. And I would just leave markers wherever you've left questions, and I've basically finished an answer. So I ramble a lot. Unfortunately, Twitter has like a 2-minute 20 duration limit, so you might not get too many things for Twitter if it's my answers. I'd listen through and just leave yourself markers of like question, and then like literally leave a marker. I'm thinking Final Cut, but any tool. What was the question? Okay, cool. And when did the answer finish? Fine. Because if your podcast is a Q&A format, as much as it's free flowing, like there's little structure, there's the questions you've asked along the way, right? And the narrative. So that'd be the first thing. So that's like your A cut and done the editing time. So you've gone through like what's usable, what wasn't. Where was something that I repeated myself or coughed or something like that, or when I was faffing around with my camera at the start, get that gone. So then you've just extracted, like, you've done your first like mine of, you know, maybe there was 10 moments in this podcast where you asked the question and I gave an answer, and you've already left a marker for yourself of what that question was. And then firstly, because we've got the visuals, we probably start with video clips. So then what we would do is we'd go, okay, what platforms do we want to focus on? Now, what kind of a hack to kind of, in my eyes, get the most bang for your buck is to just focus on 2 aspect ratios, so square and then portrait, which is, so you got 1:1 square, you've got portrait, which is 9:16. You could even just forget portrait at this point, because portrait just ticks Instagram, IGTV, or Reels. You could just forget that, and you could just literally just make a template where you just drop your landscape video. You have your title at the top, which is the question that you thought about earlier. Well done, you saved yourself some time. And then you have like subtitles at the bottom, which you can do in all these different tools. So you've just gone through, you found those 10 moments. Yeah, you could clean them up a little bit, remove the ums and ers, shorten that person's answer when they were talking too much. And then you've just got these like little pockets, these little moments, like as Ali calls them, fire moments of what would be interesting. Now, don't have to post them all. You could take the best 3 to 5, depends how regularly you're doing this podcast. You might say, hey, I want to just pick the best 3 moments from each podcast, because I record every week. Fine. You just pick the best 3 things which you think I'm speaking to your audience for. And then, as I said, you can drop it into a template, which means that even if this is landscape, which is great for your YouTube channel, which gets posted over here, because it's in landscape, it's great. It could be your moments for your YouTube channel. You can just drop anything landscape into a clip. We've all seen them on social media, particularly like Instagram, where it could be branded, and that's just a sunk cost time to make that. Let's say, fast forward a little bit, your outcome is done. You've made these square clips. Then you can post those on LinkedIn, you can post them on Twitter, you can post them on Facebook. So the asset itself could be the same. Potentially your caption might be different, like Instagram, it might be longer with some hashtag, like 10 to 15 hashtags. Your Twitter might be more of a punchy one-liner with a quote from the guest, and then you've got the asset posted. And then Facebook is, again, how you would write it for a Facebook post. So step 1 is make video clips. Now, great thing about video clips is that the audio is good, and you could just stop the visuals and you can make some sort of design, and you've got audiograms. And then if you are using subscription tools, if you're using transcription tools for your video clips and you've subtitled them, usually you have a text file, like a transcription file of what you said in that video. Amazing, that's your social media copy. Or amazing, that's your Twitter threads and your single tweets. And then suddenly you've just got all of this stuff. And it really doesn't take too much time in any shape or form. And that's what I would say. And then, yeah, I usually focus on square and portrait. I've got a video on my YouTube channel where I deliberately, with the portrait content, it's the same square design, but the design just continues up and below. So if you use a block color as a design, and you'll see what I mean on if you check that video out, you can then tick the box of portrait content as well. And so, yeah, you've got all of these assets made from this podcast, which, as we said before, is evergreen content. You can post it and promote your podcast at any point. Or you can do as well an extra value add. You could give your guest the video clips and the content you've made. They can post them and they can actually promote your content as well.
I like it. Okay, that's very cool. And before I ask my follow-up, I just want to say that I will link, Joe, your absolutely fantastic video of how to repurpose content. I have watched that many times. It's probably one of my most viewed YouTube videos of all time. I will link that up. I recommend everybody watch that, even if you're not ready for repurposing now. It is phenomenal and should be your kind of Bible. Like Joe's just told you everything to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I generally don't want to. It's probably a bad thing to say. I talk myself down. I don't think it's necessarily hard.
Yeah.
Particularly if you know, like, if it's a podcast. So if you've asked great questions, Bav, as the podcast host, which you have, then the content itself, with social media, like whatever you post, it does come down to like the core quality. So, you know, if you've asked interesting questions and then I hopefully gave a half interesting answer, then that hopefully is an interesting part of the content, and you're literally just extracting it. You're thinking to do that. Now, as a podcast host, if this was a free flowing conversation for 1 hour, where you've asked me a question and you're like, you know what, Bav, yeah, that's a really good question, then my answer doesn't make sense in isolation. It needs to have your question. But if you're even just thinking about repurposing, you might pause and then you might ask the next question, or you might think about how you say things in a way which will give you those clips. A really good example is if you're like, hey, here's my 10 tips to be a YouTuber. If your YouTube video just said, tip 1, this, and then my next tip is this. If you said, and my next tip is this, and then said the tip, it doesn't make too much sense if that was like cut as a moment in itself. So you want to kind of like lead into what the value would be. And that, again, it's just by thinking about post-production, or in your scripts, you could literally just allow for content to be repurposed by just pausing for a second, and considering how you might use it going forward. It's the whole thing about like create once and just distribute like 100 times.
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer.
It makes sense. And I guess, out of interest, is this something you picked up yourself or from other people, or is this very closely linked to Gary Vee's kind of, I can't even remember what the article is called, or is that where it's come from?
I'm a huge fan of Gary Vee. This is the thing, it's not new. Like repurposing is not new. You know, if you're creating anything, you need to distribute and get it in front of people. So my work in particular stems from when I was doing LinkedIn, trying to get jobs, and then I was getting exposed to people who are in senior positions, and then I realized, okay, so they don't have a podcast, they don't have a YouTube channel, but it goes back to that. I could go on a Zoom call with them, we could record it, and I could transcribe it. And that's how the work that I do is now like that 10x, where you just get whoever you're working with to focus on this one thing. I just need you talking for an hour, to the point where most of the reason why I was able to grow the business is just using these different tools where, for example, if I have a video clip you found, I use a tool called Subly, which I can transcribe it. And the reason that tool is so efficient is because it gives you the transcription of your video clip. So then suddenly you can take that and write all your tweets and all your Twitter threads. And that's literally how I was able to even scale this business, because I was making all this content in such an efficient way that it was like a solution for people. It wasn't taking too much of my time, but then I could charge for it. I could start to get more and more clients, and then able to match my income. So yeah, I think Gary Vee, huge influence. He's probably the best example of, like, I can literally think of it in my head right now. He'll go to whiteboard, draw something, take a photo. That's the Instagram photo, and then he'll like take a selfie. At the time, that's his Snapchat. Like just the machine. Yeah. So I think that a huge influence for me without even realizing it. And then yeah, just finding an efficient way to do all this with different tools. And then with my own content, started on my YouTube channel, teaching people how to do it. So like anyone can do it. And then if you fall in the bracket of you want to pay someone else to do it, then that was like, hey, let's have a conversation. So yeah, anyone can do what I'm saying. From everything I've said, I've literally told you how to do it. So either promote your own content or start your own business. Yeah.
Just get you to do it, Joe. I think that's the answer. Cool. I want to kind of come back a kind of full circle here and go back to Ali just for a second, because you've obviously been doing his social media kind of strategy and content for a few years now, or a couple of years. Wherever. I've also lost count of time with the pandemic. But is there anything that is bonkers? Is there anything that's particularly stood out to you in terms of, oh, this was a really good thing that we did, or this was like the best ROI of what we could have done, or, you know, this platform has served us best? Is there anything that stood out over that time for his content?
Yeah, I think so. Basically, with him, so he was very much just doing his YouTube channel. His Instagram was his personal content. And then repurposing allowed almost to populate all of his social media platforms basically with daily content from him, just having already focused on that long form content. So to the point where he wouldn't really even be checking some of the socials. Like, for example, LinkedIn, he's always said it's like my baby. He doesn't care about LinkedIn, but as far as he knows, you know, two posts a day is going out on that platform, and it's working for him. So when it comes to the point of launching a podcast or selling a book, you've now got this engaged audience who you've been looking after for 2 years. And obviously he's the best example where he just provides value, incredible value. Everything that he does is of the highest production quality. So he's helping so many people, and therefore content repurposing is a great fit for him. And managing his socials is just incredibly fulfilling, because it's just, this is a guy who's just literally trying to help as many people as possible through being a teacher online. YouTube is his vehicle to doing that. And then social media, I've been able to just get all of his content out. So to answer the question, repurposing to me was like my solution to efficiently manage his social media profiles in his tone of voice. You know, the content was stuff he'd said, so the captions in his tone of voice. And then people were getting teasers to his YouTube channel, podcast interviews or guest interviews, and everyone's getting all this exposure to his content in all these different platforms, which he would never have had the time for. Most recently, I think the highest everything we are doing is probably trying to focus on Reels and crack that game and crack TikTok and crack YouTube Shorts. We tried repurposing content. It does work, but a huge part of TikTok and Reels is people are scrolling through their feeds. They're being given all this new content, which they didn't ask for. So with TikTok, anyone can grow on TikTok, but no one has asked for your content. Like, no one's followed you. So if you've taken 10 seconds to even start the point that you're saying or providing the value, they're just going to be gone in their feed. So you need the hook. I heard someone say it this week to me, which is a really good example. If you're just like scrolling through a catalog of like videos, and you've got like half a second to know what video you want to open. So I'm imagining like a catalog, like a written catalog, just scrolling, you're opening pages, open, like the Argos catalog.
Yes.
You go for the Argos catalog, right? It's like, what page are we going to stop at, right? So this was if this was your TikTok content, your reels, someone just swipe. Oh, that one had a hook, or that one caught me in the half a second. Stay. And that's where repurposing something where it wasn't built for that purpose is quite hard. You can do it, but now we're deliberately, as I said, Google Doc open, 30, content themes, 5, boom. Productivity for him. Asking him questions and then just thinking about the hook, and then that's how you nail the sort of TikTok and Reels game. If you're doing educational content, it's just how can you get the hook, which gets them to watch the content, and then it's more like retention and watch time. If someone watches it multiple times, it then gets to more and more people. So more recently we've been taking the time to do that, because as I say, you can do it for the 3 platforms of Reels, Shorts and TikTok, so it's a no-brainer. Again, anyone could do that. So yeah, I think repurposing is a very efficient sort of solution to social media management. And then it's got legs in the long term, because it's just where you repurpose that content for. Where do you focus on? We did P2YA cohort 1, which is a YouTube course for anyone who doesn't know, Ali's YouTube course. In cohort 1, YouTube Shorts came out during cohort 1. They hadn't prepared the material, right? Like they realized, oh my God, there's this thing called YouTube Shorts, which is going to compete with TikTok. Now cohort 4 is happening, and it's like, how can you make your first YouTube short? Social media moves so fast. You want to think about what you can make. So future Bav is like, thank you, Bav, last year. You thought to record with a good microphone. You thought to put your camera on,
Well done.
and it wasn't a Zoom call because we have all of this content, future Bav. So yeah.
I hope I'll be thanking myself in a year. No, that's a really, really good point. I guess my kind of final question for you is looking back at your social media time, or just your time working, is there kind of something that you can pull out to say that was the most valuable, or that was just super cool, or like the most insightful or best thing over that time?
That I've created myself or created for other people?
Not even necessarily. Okay, let me ask that question again, because it was very poorly worded.
Yeah.
Okay, over the last couple of years, what's the biggest learning you've had on this journey?
Biggest learning I have had in terms of social media, to answer that question, I think if you want to focus on impact of the content you're creating, so do not create things for content's sake. So even if you're repurposing content and efficiently creating all of this output, like where are the opportunities? There are algorithms, which it's not people. So YouTube is a really good example. You can have the best YouTube video out there, and if no one clicks on it, no one would know. So you do need to know. Titles and thumbnails are the game. You have to optimize those, otherwise no one will watch your video. And with social media, content has to have a purpose. And if Facebook's organic reach is down, because literally this platform only cares right now, it's about to change apparently, about paid ads as their business model.
Yep.
Posting to a Facebook page for 3 years when you have 10 page likes is just a bit silly. There's other opportunities, right? Algorithms are not real people. It's not people in a HQ at LinkedIn with all these monitors with this content being posted, and they go, what's good content? That's amazing. We're going to give that one 1 million views. It doesn't happen like that. So you have to, whatever you're making, you then have to match it up to where the opportunities are on social and to where your audience are. And if you do that, if you just stop and think, then you're going to have the most leverage. So for me, it goes back to client work, but in terms of social media, I think massive thing I've learned is this content actually doing something? Or are we just ticking a box of I'm posting every day? What is that doing for you? In general, I'm now trying to build a content marketing agency. It's more about the business that I'm growing, which is incredible. This is what I wanted to do. I've burnt out many times, probably not realizing that I am where I wanted to be. But in terms of business mindset, oh man, the lessons I'm learning now about hiring, trying to build a team, hire people who are cleverer than you, trying to motivate people and be seen as a leader, not a boss, learning to manage, loads of lessons. That's a journey I'm on right now. So I'm kind of gone from being the operator, making all the content, editing all the content, subtitling all the content, writing all the content, to now being the quote unquote business owner of a team who are doing that. So my role is beginning to change. However, I love it. So the business will probably fail because I just want to edit all Ali's videos because I enjoy it so much, and then the business will fail because I'm not being a business owner. It's like a ship, and no one's like, I'm meant to be steering the ship, and I've just been like distracted by this pigeon that's flown over me, and I'm just like, oh my god, it's so cool, and then no one's steering the ship, and it just crashes.
Yeah, let's not let that happen.
So now I'm learning to try and own a business, and to my own detriment, I enjoy the content creation so much that I'm maybe not doing the best job at leading the business, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be fine, Joe. I think it's a learning curve, it's a change, and it's a journey. It's the next step, right, for you. It's kind of like, okay, I've done this, but you didn't start being where you were, so you are not going to start and be like the best leader in the world, but you are in a great position, and you're only going to get better over time. So it's absolutely awesome, and I love what you're doing, and I think it's absolutely phenomenal. And I'm so glad that you're not that you're burning out, but that you're building this that you're building this amazing agency, and you're kind of just doing what you want to do. And I think that's so freaking cool. So I absolutely love it. So congrats.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I do want to get onto that learning business series, of which I said 18 months ago I'd start doing weekly videos. Oh god,
it's okay. You've had other priorities, Joe. It's all fine.
That's like I've just done the maths. It's like 78 videos I'm meant to have done by now.
Well, if it makes you feel better, my channel's also on a hiatus, so yeah, shit happens.
Shit happens,
but yeah. Right, Joe, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. I've had an incredibly fun time. No, this has been awesome. Thank you very much for joining me and taking the time out. And thank you for imparting so much wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Me?
You, Joe. No, thank you.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
It's been a pleasure, Bav.